Welcome back to AI Draws the World, where every line tells a story. Today, our pen plotter will slowly bring one of the world's most recognizable places to life, Times Square in New York City. While thousands of carefully planned lines become a finished drawing, we'll explore a timeless story about the people who fill this famous intersection every day. This isn't a history lesson, and it isn't about one famous person. It's about ordinary moments, unexpected friendships, and the small acts of kindness that turn a busy place into something unforgettable. So sit back, relax, enjoy the sound of the pen on paper, and let the drawing unfold one line at a time. Our story begins just before sunrise, when Times Square is at its quietest. One day in Times Square, every city has millions of visitors, but only a few ever discover its greatest story. There are places in the world that people visit, and there are places the world visits. Times Square is one of those places. This is not the story of one person. It is the story of one extraordinary day in Times Square. Chapter 1. Before the city wakes. There is a moment each morning when Times Square belongs to almost no one. The giant digital billboards still glow through the darkness, painting the empty streets with shifting colors of blue, red, and gold. The sidewalks that only hours before held thousands of footsteps now rest quietly beneath the lights. New York is never completely silent. It simply whispers instead of shouts. At 4:30 in the morning, a yellow taxi rolled slowly through the nearly empty intersection. Behind the wheel sat Michael Russo. For 32 years, Michael had driven the streets of Manhattan. He knew every shortcut, every bridge, every tunnel, and every alley tourists never noticed. A few blocks away, Maria Alvarez arranged fresh pastries inside the glass display case of Maria's Corner Cafe. Her grandfather had opened the cafe in 1978, and every morning she unlocked the door before sunrise. Across the street, Harold Jenkins, wearing a bright orange safety vest, pushed a broom across the sidewalk. For 26 years, he had cleaned Times Square before sunrise. Most visitors never noticed him. That never bothered Harold. He often said that if people noticed the street sweeper, he probably was not doing his job very well. Inside one of Broadway's oldest theaters, Thomas Bell unlocked the side entrance and stepped onto the dark stage. For 43 years, he had opened the theater before anyone else arrived. Every morning, before actors, musicians, and stagehands entered, he whispered the same sentence. Let's tell another good story. As the first hint of sunlight appeared behind the skyline, the city slowly began to wake. Delivery trucks arrived. Coffee shops filled. Subway stations grew louder. A father carried his sleepy daughter on his shoulders. She rubbed her eyes, looked up at the glowing billboards, and gasped. "Daddy, the buildings have television screens." He laughed. "They sure do. Is this really Times Square?" "It is." "I thought there'd be more people." "There will be. Give it a little time." Chapter 2. The first taxi. The first rays of sunlight climbed between the tall buildings. At street level, the glowing billboards still looked brighter than the morning sun. Michael eased his taxi onto Broadway. His dashboard clock read 5:12 a.m., exactly when he always began his day. His radio crackled. "Taxi 12. Pickup requested at 46th and 7th. On my way." Standing beneath a theater marquee was an elderly gentleman in a gray coat with a worn leather suitcase. He climbed in carefully. "Good morning," Michael said. "Where to?" "Nowhere just yet," the man answered. Michael smiled. "I like that answer. I've waited 40 years to come back." "Vacation?" The man shook his head. "Memory." As they passed the famous red steps, the gentleman leaned toward the window. "It was right there." "What was?" "My wife. We met right there. It was December. It had just snowed. She asked me where the subway was." "Did you know?" "Not at all. I was visiting too." "So, what did you do?" "I guessed." "Were you right?" "Not even close." They laughed together. After a few quiet blocks, the man said, "We spent 3 days exploring New York, then 39 years exploring life together. And now?" Michael asked. "Now I came back to say thank you." Michael stopped near a small park. The man reached for his wallet, but Michael waved him off. "No charge." The man smiled. "My wife would have liked you. She sounds like she had good taste." Before stepping away, the man said, "I almost didn't come. I thought I would only remember what I lost. Instead, I remembered what I was lucky enough to have." He tipped his hat and disappeared into the growing crowd. Michael sat quietly for several seconds. Sometimes passengers left umbrellas. Sometimes they left shopping bags. This one had left a story. Chapter 3. The Corner Cafe. By 6 o'clock, the sidewalks had begun to fill, not with tourists yet, but with the people who belonged to the morning. Construction workers, stagehands, police officers, nurses, office workers, the people who kept the city moving before the world arrived. Harold entered Maria's Corner Cafe, carrying his broom over one shoulder. Maria looked up. "You're 3 minutes late." "I had to stop and admire the sunrise." "You used that excuse 3 times this week." It was a different sunrise. Maria placed his usual order on the counter. Large coffee, 2 sugar packets, and a blueberry muffin. Harold reached for his wallet. Maria shook her head. "Already paid." "By who?" She pointed to a chalkboard that read, "Coffee for a stranger." Beneath it were 27 chalk marks. "Someone bought 27 coffees yesterday," Maria said. "They told me to give them to anyone who looked like they needed one." Harold smiled. "So today I'm lucky number 1. "No, you're lucky number 28. A young woman stepped inside carrying a violin case. Her name was Sophia, and it was her first morning performing in Times Square. "I'm terrified," she admitted. Harold chuckled. "Good, good. If you're nervous, it means you care." Maria handed her a warm cinnamon roll. "On the house. My grandfather believed no one should begin their first day in New York on an empty stomach." Michael arrived for coffee and noticed Sophia staring through the window at the billboards. "First day," he asked. "How did you know?" "The eyes. Everyone who sees Times Square for the first time looks up." Outside, a little girl with a bright yellow backpack stood beneath the red steps and stared upward. Her name was Emily Parker. "Dad," she whispered, "is every day like this?" Her father smiled. "In Times Square, every day is different." Chapter 4. The Girl with the Yellow Backpack. By 7:30, Times Square no longer whispered. It sang. Emily slowly turned in a circle. Every building looked taller than the last. Every screen seemed brighter. Every sound felt bigger than anything she had ever experienced. "Where do I look first?" she asked. Her father laughed. "I've been asking myself the same question." Nearby, a young artist named Noah Bennett unfolded a small wooden easel. Every morning he painted the same intersection, not because it looked the same, but because it never did. Emily wandered over. "What are you painting?" "Today." She looked at the blank canvas, but there's nothing there. "Not yet." "When will there be?" "When today happens." Nearby, Sophia began to play her violin. At first, the music was almost hidden beneath traffic. Then it became clearer. People slowed down. A businessman removed one earbud. A couple paused with shopping bags. Harold leaned on his broom. For 3 minutes, people forgot they were in a hurry. When the song ended, an elderly woman placed money in the violin case. "I've lived here 50 years, she said. "Thank you for reminding me to stop walking." Sophia smiled. "Thank you for stopping." Emily returned to Noah's painting. Tiny figures, now, filled the canvas. "You're painting everybody." "I'm trying." "But there are too many." Noah smiled. "That's why I'll never finish." Emily looked across the busy streets and realized that every person she passed was the main character in their own story. Chapter 5. the man who fed the city. By 8:30, Times Square was hungry. On the corner of 47th Street stood a silver food cart with a handwritten sign, Omar's Hot Dogs, serving Times Square since 1984. Omar Hassan had opened the same cart every morning for 40 years. His father had taught him, if you're going to serve people, serve them with pride. Michael was the first customer. You know what I want, he said. Omar laughed. I knew before you parked. Michael leaned against the cart. Busy day. It always is. I suppose that's why we're still here. Omar handed him coffee. We're not selling food. We're feeding stories. Emily and her parents soon arrived. She noticed photographs taped inside the cart. Families, police officers, actors, construction workers, children. Who are they? My regular customers, Omar said. Do you know all their names? No, but I remember their stories. An exhausted nurse approached and searched her purse. I must have left my wallet at work. Omar handed her breakfast. I'll come back, she said. I know you will. Get some sleep. Emily watched her leave. You didn't even know her. I know enough, Omar replied. I know she's tired. I know she's hungry. And I know tomorrow she'll probably help someone else. Emily thought about that. Kindness didn't always stop with one person. Sometimes it kept traveling. Chapter 6. When the rain came. Late morning settled over the city. Times Square no longer felt like a place. It felt like a heartbeat. Noah's canvas had changed since sunrise. Yellow taxis, families, musicians, workers, umbrellas, and Omar's food cart had all found their place. Emily leaned over the easel. You made me. Noah laughed. I guess I did. Her father studied the painting. It looks different than real life. It should, Noah said. Paintings don't show what your eyes see. They show what your heart remembers. High above the buildings, dark clouds gathered. Harold noticed first. About 20 minutes, he said. Maria brought the cafe tables inside. Omar adjusted his umbrella. Artists covered their paintings. Then the rain came. Not a storm, just enough to soften the city. Umbrellas bloomed across the sidewalks. Red, blue, green, yellow, purple. Reflections of the billboards shimmered across the wet pavement. Noah grabbed another canvas and started painting. Wouldn't it be easier to wait until it stops? Someone asked. If I wait, I'll miss this version of the city. Harold saw a tourist couple sharing one tiny umbrella and handed them his spare. But what about you? I work here. I'll be fine. Emily watched. Do people always help each other here? Her father thought for a moment. I think they always have the chance. The rain lasted only 15 minutes. When sunlight returned, Times Square looked even brighter than before. Chapter 7. Behind the curtain. After the rain, Times Square shimmered beneath a blue sky. Everyone wanted to photograph the city, but some of its best stories happened where cameras were never allowed. Behind the curtain, inside a Broadway theater, Emma Collins checked the afternoon schedule. She was 29 years old and the stage manager for one of Broadway's longest-running musicals. If she did her job well, nobody noticed she had done anything at all. Actors, musicians, electricians, carpenters, costume designers, hairstylists, guards, cleaners, and ticket takers all worked together for one performance. Frank Donnelly entered carrying a scratched old toolbox. He had repaired Broadway stages for 45 years. Anything broken? Emma asked. Not yet. I like your optimism. Frank smiled. If nothing's broken, you've got time to appreciate what's working. They walked across the empty stage. Still gives me butterflies, Emma said. Good, Frank replied. You too. Every show. If the butterflies ever disappear, I'll know it's time to retire. Later, Frank noticed a loose floorboard. Emma heard nothing, but Frank knelt, listened, selected the right tool, and fixed it in 2 minutes. How did you know exactly what to do? I didn't. I just listened first. That stayed with Emma. Sometimes the solution began with listening. Chapter 8. The Red Steps. By 3 o'clock, Times Square had become a sea of movement. Emily and her family climbed the famous red steps. From above, the city looked different. Not quieter, not slower, just connected. Below, Michael's taxi rolled through traffic. Omar served another customer. Maria stepped outside with cookies. Harold swept another block. Sophia tuned her violin. Noah painted another tiny figure. "Everyone's going somewhere," Emily said. Her father smiled. "They sure are. But they're all together." Nearby, an elderly photographer unfolded an old tripod. His name was Arthur Bennett, and he had photographed Times Square every Tuesday for 37 years. Exactly one photograph. Never two. Why only one? Emily asked. "Because if I only get one, I pay closer attention." "How do you know when it's the right picture?" "You don't. You feel it." A flock of pigeons lifted into the air. A yellow taxi entered the intersection. A street performer tossed bright orange juggling pins. A little boy laughed. A woman reached for her husband's hand. Click. Arthur smiled. "That's today's picture." Emily opened her notebook and wrote. Things I don't want to forget. The violin, the painter, the hot dog man, the cafe, the photographer, the red stairs, the lights, the people. Then she added, "Everyone has somewhere they're trying to be, but sometimes the best part is where you already are." Chapter 9. When the lights come alive. By 5 o'clock, the afternoon crowd blended into the evening crowd. Office workers left buildings. Tourists checked maps. Broadway audiences gathered beneath marquees. Times Square was beautiful during the day. At night, it became unforgettable. One by one, the billboards grew brighter. Blue became red. Red became gold. Gold became violet. Glass buildings reflected every color imaginable. Emily looked upward. "It looks like daytime." Her father smiled. "I think it's brighter." Michael drove a grandmother back to her hotel after a Broadway show. "Was it worth seeing again?" he asked. "It was better this time." "How?" "The first time I watched the stage. Tonight I watched my granddaughter." Michael nodded. Sometimes the memory wasn't the event. It was the person beside you. Maria stepped outside with fresh cookies. She handed them to Harold, Sophia, and Omar. "My grandfather said no city ever had too much kindness," she said. Sophia played a slow evening melody. People stopped. For 4 minutes, Times Square forgot how busy it was. Above them, the New Year's ball rested silently atop one Times Square. It waited for another year, another countdown, another shared moment. Chapter 10. The Broadway Lights. By 6:30, sidewalks outside the theaters became rivers of excitement. Families gathered beneath glowing marquees. Children peeked through theater doors. Some people held paper tickets. Others checked phones. Emma stood just inside the lobby. 30 minutes until curtain. Backstage, actors stretched, musicians tuned, and stagehands prepared props. Frank helped a nervous young stagehand place a wooden lantern on the correct table. "The audience thinks the magic happens out there," Frank said, pointing to the seats. Then he tapped the stage. "Really, it starts back here." Outside, Emily watched a street performer buy a replacement ice cream for a little boy who had dropped his. No announcement, no applause, just kindness. She was beginning to notice that the best moments often happened when nobody was trying to impress anyone. At 7 o'clock, the theater dimmed. The conductor stepped up. Applause filled the room. Emma smiled. Someone in that audience might forget the lines or songs, but they would remember how they felt. And sometimes that was the greatest story anyone could tell. Chapter 11. The music between the buildings. By 7:15, Sophia was tired. Her feet ached. Her shoulders hurt. Her fingertips were sore from the violin strings. She thought about packing up. Then she saw Emily watching. "One more song," Sophia whispered. She began to play a gentle melody that sounded like a conversation between old friends. People slowed. Michael rolled down his taxi window. Harold leaned on his broom. Maria turned off the espresso machine for a moment and said, "Listen." Omar's line of customers became quiet. Emma stepped outside during intermission. Noah closed his sketchbook and simply watched. When the song ended, Emily approached. "I liked that one best." "It was my grandmother's favorite," Sophia said. "Could I learn?" "Anyone can. The hardest part isn't learning the notes. It's remembering why you wanted to play." "I'd want to make people smile." Sophia smiled. "Then you're already halfway there." Arthur gave Sophia a photograph he had taken of her playing beneath the billboards. "I didn't even know you were there." That's usually when photographs happen. Emily watched the exchange and realized that everyone had shared something today. Music, food, coffee, art, photographs time. No one was keeping score. They simply gave what they had. Chapter 12. The Unexpected Reunion. By 8:30, Times Square had become a world of its own. Michael picked up the elderly gentleman from the morning. "I thought your journey was finished," Michael said. "So did I." "Where to?" "The train station. But first, one more look." As they drove, the man said, "When I first came here, I thought New York was all about buildings. Now, I think it's about people who happen to meet between the buildings." At Maria's cafe, Emily's family returned for hot chocolate. Harold sat near the window. Sophia came in exhausted with her violin case. Maria gave her soup. Noah entered carrying his painting from After the Rain. The painting showed Times Square filled with umbrellas, reflections, Omar's cart, Michael's taxi, Harold sweeping, Maria outside the cafe, Sophia playing, Emily with her yellow backpack, and Arthur behind his camera. "That's everybody," Emily whispered. Noah nodded. "This city isn't made of buildings. It's made of moments." Maria framed the painting and hung it on the wall. Arthur entered and showed a photograph of everyone gathered around the painting, smiling without posing. "I think this might be today's picture after all." Everyone laughed. For one beautiful moment, strangers realized they were no longer strangers. They had shared one ordinary Tuesday, and somehow it had become extraordinary. Chapter 13. The lights above, the stars beyond. By 9 o'clock, Times Square was a world of light. Emily leaned against the railing near the red steps and stopped counting billboards. Instead, she watched the people. A boy laughed at bubbles. A couple shared a pretzel. Friends tried to fit into one selfie. A father lifted his daughter onto his shoulders. The lights were beautiful, but the smiles were brighter. Michael stood beside Harold outside the cafe. "When I was younger," Michael said, "I thought New York was all about moving fast. And now, I think it's about knowing when to slow down." "Took me 20 years to learn that," Harold said. "Took me 30, Michael replied. Omar served a young man who said the city must get exhausting. "It can," Omar said. "Then why keep doing it?" "Because every day I get to watch people make memories." Sophia packed away her violin. Emma approached and handed her 2 tickets to tomorrow night's Broadway performance. "I've never seen a Broadway show," Sophia whispered. "Then tomorrow seems like the perfect time," Emma said. Emily looked around. "Dad, do you think the city gets lonely after everyone leaves?" Her father smiled. "I don't think so. Tomorrow new people will arrive, and every one of them will bring another story." Chapter 14. The Last Train Home. By 9:30, Times Square had a calmer rhythm. Michael parked his taxi and pulled a worn photograph from the glove compartment. It showed his father beside an old yellow taxi. His father had always said, "The buildings change, the people change, but kindness never goes out of style." A young man knocked on the window. "Are you available?" "Always." "Penn Station, please." As they drove, Michael noticed the young man looking out every window. "First trip." "Is it that obvious?" "You've got the look that says you don't want to leave yet." The young man smiled. "I thought I'd remember the lights." I think I'll remember the people. At the cafe, Emily handed Harold a crayon drawing. It showed Maria's cafe, Omar's cart, Sophia with her violin, Michael's taxi, and Harold sweeping. Across the top, she had written, "Thank you for making Times Square beautiful." Harold stared at it quietly. "I think this might be the nicest thing anyone's ever given me." Emily smiled. "You can hang it at work." "I think I will." Chapter 15. Midnight at the Red Steps. By 10:30, Times Square looked magical. Emily's family took one last walk. Near the Red Steps, Emily noticed an old shoeshine stand. A sign read, "Samuel's Shoe Shine since 1972. "I polish more than shoes," Samuel said. "I polish conversations." Emily sat in the chair, though her sneakers were already clean. "What was your favorite part of New York?" Samuel asked. "The violin." "Good choice. What was yours?" Samuel looked around. "Mondays." "Why Mondays?" "Because everyone thinks Mondays are ordinary. But every Monday someone visits Times Square for the first time. Someone gets a dream job. Someone hears music that changes their day. Someone laughs harder than they have in months. Seems extraordinary to me." Later, Emily thanked him. "For what?" he asked. "For helping me remember today." Samuel smiled. "You would have remembered anyway. You weren't just looking today. You were noticing." Those words stayed with her. Looking happened with your eyes. Noticing happened with your heart. Chapter 16. The City That Never Sleeps. By 11 o'clock, Broadway audiences poured onto the sidewalks. Emma stood outside the stage door wishing the cast good night. Inside the empty theater, Frank turned off the final spotlight and whispered, "Good night." Michael picked up Sophia, violin case in hand. "How'd your first day go?" he asked. "I think it changed my life." "Good. I was hoping New York would." "No," Michael said. "I knew." Maria closed the cafe. Omar folded his cart umbrella. Harold headed toward the subway, but Emily ran after him with a list titled, "People Who Made Today Special." Her list included Dad, Mom, Maria, Omar, Michael, Sophia, Noah, Arthur, Emma, Frank, Samuel, and Harold. "I almost forgot you," she said. Harold laughed and wiped away a tear. "I've never been on anybody's list before." "You are now." Noah sat on the red steps and wrote beneath his sketches, "Cities are remembered for their skylines. People are remembered for their kindness." Emily stood outside her hotel and whispered, "Thank you." Her father smiled. "I think Times Square said thank you back. It can't talk. Maybe not with words. But cities have ways of speaking." Chapter 17. The Midnight Promise. The hands of the clock crept toward midnight. For many cities, midnight meant the day was ending. For Times Square, it meant another chapter was beginning. Emily stood near the center of the square with her parents. She closed her eyes. "What are you doing?" her father asked. "I'm saving today." "How?" "I'm pretending I can take a picture with my heart." Her mother whispered, "I think that's the best kind." Michael finished his final fare and placed his father's photograph back into the glove compartment. "Good night, Dad." Maria left one small lamp glowing inside the cafe, a promise to tomorrow's customers. Omar taped a handwritten note inside his cart. "See you tomorrow." Harold unfolded Emily's list one more time and smiled. Noah looked back at the billboards and whispered, "See you tomorrow." Arthur held the imperfect photograph of everyone in the cafe and loved it because it felt true. Emma placed one hand on the theater door. "Sleep well." The church bells rang. Midnight. The day Emily would always remember had just become yesterday. A new couple stepped into Times Square for the first time. "Where do we start?" the young man asked. A police officer smiled. "Anywhere. You really can't pick a wrong direction." Their story had just begun, just as another had ended. Chapter 18. The city says good night. Midnight had come and gone, but Times Square refused to grow dark. The sidewalks were quieter now. A few couples wandered beneath the lights. Photographers packed away cameras. Street performers folded chairs. Restaurants swept sidewalks. Emily stood near the red staircase one last time. "If I listen carefully," she said, "I can hear everything." A distant taxi horn, soft laughter, the rumble of a subway train, a suitcase rolling over pavement, music from a saxophone several blocks away. "I think New York has its own heartbeat." Her father smiled. "I think you're right." Michael cleaned the inside of his taxi and found a small green toy dinosaur on the back seat. He placed it safely in the glove compartment. Some things deserved to find their way home. Maria watered the flowers outside the cafe. Harold stopped halfway down the subway steps and looked back at Times Square. 26 years, thousands of mornings, thousands of conversations. Not one day had ever been exactly the same. At the subway station, Sophia met a nervous guitarist. She opened her violin case and joined him for one song. Noah placed today's painting in his studio and knew it was his favorite, not because of what it showed, but because of what it remembered. Back at the hotel, Emily wrote one final sentence in her notebook. "I came to see Times Square. I left remembering the people." Chapter 19. Before tomorrow begins. 1 o'clock in the morning arrived quietly. A street cleaning truck rolled through the intersection. Harold walked beside a new employee named Daniel. "I've never seen Times Square like this," Daniel said. "Most people haven't. It feels peaceful." "It is." Daniel looked at the broom in his hands. "What if nobody notices?" Harold smiled. "They usually don't. But tomorrow a little girl might run across the sidewalk. A family might take a picture they'll frame for 30 years. They won't think about who swept the street. They'll just remember how beautiful it felt." Daniel looked down at the broom again. It suddenly felt different. Not like a tool, like responsibility. Maria returned to the cafe kitchen to prepare tomorrow's dough. Michael left a note with the lost toy dinosaur. "We found your friend. He's waiting for you." Sophia finished one more song with a stranger in the subway. Noah opened a fresh sketchbook and wrote tomorrow's painting. Then he left the page blank. Some stories deserved room to happen first. At the hotel, Emily looked toward the glow of Times Square in the distance. Tomorrow she would go home. School would begin again. Homework, soccer practice, music lessons, normal life. But normal would feel different now, because she had discovered that extraordinary places were extraordinary not because of where they were, but because of the kindness people shared there. Chapter 20. Every city has a story. At 4:30 the next morning, Times Square belonged to the morning again. The billboards glowed. The streets were quiet. The city had completed another day, and another was beginning. Maria unlocked the cafe. Harold and Daniel began sweeping. Michael started his taxi at 5:12 a.m. Omar opened his cart and taped a note inside, "Welcome back." Emma stepped onto the empty stage and whispered, "Let's tell another good story." Frank checked every corner, because caring meant checking anyway. Noah unfolded a blank canvas. Arthur loaded a fresh roll of film. Sophia stepped from the subway, opened her violin case, and began playing. Miles away, Emily's family packed the car to go home. Her notebook rested safely inside her backpack. As they crossed the bridge, leaving Manhattan, Emily rolled down the window. The city slowly disappeared behind them. She whispered, "Thank you." Years passed. Emily grew older. She visited Paris, London, Tokyo, and San Francisco. Each city was beautiful. Each had its own landmarks and skyline. But whenever someone asked her favorite city, she smiled and answered, "Times Square." People usually laughed. "That's not a city." Emily smiled wider. "I know, but it felt like one." Then she would tell them about the violinist, the taxi driver, the painter, the photographer, the food cart, the cafe, the theater, the street sweeper, and the shoe shine stand. The ordinary people who made one ordinary Tuesday unforgettable. Because in the end, the brightest lights weren't hanging on skyscrapers. They lived inside people. The tallest buildings weren't made of steel. They were built from kindness. The greatest attraction wasn't a billboard, a theater, or a staircase. It was the reminder that every person you pass is carrying a story you cannot see. If you slow down long enough to notice, you might become part of it. As the final line of the pen drawing appeared across the page, the machine gently lifted the pen. The city was complete. The story was complete. One quiet line at a time, Times Square had come to life. Every sunrise brings new visitors. Every sunset sends them home with memories. The lights will continue to shine. The taxis will continue to roll. The theaters will raise their curtains. The musicians will play. The cafes will open. The painters will paint. The photographers will wait for the perfect moment. And somewhere a child will look up for the very first time and whisper, "Wow." Because every city has famous buildings. Every city has famous streets. But the greatest cities are remembered for something much simpler. The kindness shared between strangers. The stories discovered in ordinary moments. And the memories that stay with us long after we've gone home. Every city has a story. Thank you for letting us draw this one together. The end. As the final line appears on the page, our journey through Times Square comes to an end. Every city has famous landmarks, but it's the people who truly give a place its heart. Thank you for spending this time with us and watching another city come to life, one line at a time. If you enjoyed today's drawing and story, consider subscribing to join us as we continue exploring remarkable places around the world. Until next time, keep creating, keep exploring, and we'll see you in the next city.